Who's ready to win the day in sports? I know you are. Welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily, powered by FantasyGuru.com, Monday through Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Justin Fensterman, and let's break everything down from a fantasy sports perspective. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast, and if you're anywhere else, well, good late morning and mid-morning to all of you out there. My name is Justin Fensty Fensterman, and welcome to Fantasy Sports Daily here on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com. I cover a lot of NBA for FantasyGuru.com and some NFL as well. Happy to be with all of you as we're getting ready to start technically the second half of the season, although we've reached that point already. But in the NBA, we know that once you're post All-Star break, it is the home stretch, the final, I'd say combined 2 months, because things end in the regular season in mid-April, but we're just getting warmed up. I think that the NBA playoffs, from a betting standpoint, from a DFS standpoint, very, very profitable. And today, because we only have one game on the slate, it's kind of a makeup game from the California Wildfires between the Lakers and the Charlotte Hornets. Kind of an awkward start time, too. 10 p.m. Eastern. Yikes, a very late one there, but I'll still be hanging out in Discord, in the DFS Discord, NBA betting Discord as well, at Fensty _ is where you can find me in there. Joining me today, as I hope to hear from a lot of you basketball fans out there, maybe you signed up for Fantasy Guru's MVP plan. If you did, welcome. Let's get ready to win, because just because a regular season might be coming to an end, playoffs, a whole other season, and that is where we benefit because we see consistency. And that's what we're starting to see already. We're past the trade deadline. We're past All-Star break at this point. And when the playoffs start, there are only about 2 or 3 games where we're learning about what these teams are going to be throwing out for an entire 7-game series, meaning once we hit the midway point of these playoff series, then we are going to benefit big time, because there are only so many tricks that these teams can pull out in a 7-game series. So we're going to be able to track those trends, and the books are going to want us to remain betting. They don't want to lose you once the regular season is over. They want to keep you. So keep their lines a little bit lower on some of the less popular players. So with that in mind, let's talk about the agenda for today here. I am going to talk a few futures for all of you, break things down from a showdown standpoint between Charlotte and Los Angeles, a very frightening spread at 12 points. I'll go over some of the potential inactives in that game. And then Armando Marsal is going to stop by. We're going to talk about showdown strategy, how to be unique. And when it comes to the Charlotte Hornets, I'm going to talk about how we can utilize them from a value standpoint from the rest of the way. It's kind of awkward if you really think about it, because these two teams, Charlotte and LA, made a trade at the deadline that would have sent Mark Williams west, Dalton Knecht east, and then Mark Williams failed the physical. And it's so crazy. I don't really understand how that works, because the guy was playing and then he fails the physical with the Lakers. And I don't know what the Lakers are looking for, but they saw Mark Williams being damaged goods. Let's be honest. Mark Williams has had his injury issues in his young NBA career, but that doesn't mean he can't make an impact. That's why I was kind of shocked that Charlotte seemed so eager to send him packing, because to me, as of right now, Dalton Knecht, while he's a very reliable shooter, that's all he really is when I see him on the court. So that's why I was kind of confused as to why Charlotte wanted to give up on him. But now he's back in Charlotte, and now it's funny because Charlotte, who kept losing a lot of their big men, now have both Mark Williams and Jusuf Nurkic, also Musa as well. So they've got those 3 guys. Musa's going to be on the outs when it comes to playing time, at least unless there's some major foul trouble. I'm interested to see, and this is where things could get a bit confusing tonight, because Mark Williams, they're concerned naturally, Charlotte, about his conditioning. I'm interested to see if Mark Williams gets his full workload, which would be about 30 minutes. Because if he's not going to get that, it's going to be hard to bet props on him. And as of right now, listed as probable for this game. So other than that, right now, the only inactive for the Charlotte-LA game, and it's not even an inactive, it's a questionable tag for LeBron James, but he was able to practice yesterday. So we'll have to see. The only thing is 10 p.m. Eastern start time. So I'll be in the Discord early on. And then if you have some last second questions, that's totally fine. But let's get those lineups locked in early. Shouldn't be too much injury impact. The only thing that we have to figure out because of this trade being rescinded is what to make of the future of the Los Angeles Lakers front court, because the Lakers front court is still very bare. Kind of thought it was bare when they had Anthony Davis. Now they have virtually no one. A bunch of pieces that are like, can't even stay on the floor. And they just signed Alex Len. And to me, Alex Len is someone, while he might play just 18 to 20 minutes, he produces enough volume that I'm fine with him, maybe not going with him as my MVP, but still including him in that lineup. I'm deeming him safe, because if there's one thing we do know about the Charlotte Hornets, they have a very tough time. Since they traded Nick Richards to Phoenix, they have a very tough time defending the interior, especially on that low block. Mark Williams is showing off those stats, and I say it all the time that just because a player can rebound, even in volume, does not make them a good defender necessarily. It doesn't. Mark Williams, that's an area he needs to improve. He's good at compiling the scoring and the rebounding, but he's not good at turning it away. Maybe that's another reason why Charlotte wanted to trade him. They recognize that. They're about as bad as the Wizards at the bottom of the league. And if you look in the last few weeks prior to the All-Star break, then you saw that even though Mark Williams was playing more and producing more, they were still getting crushed in the inside. And we were hitting so many props. A guy like Jalen Duren going up against Charlotte failed the first night, dominated the next night against them. I mean, that's right there what we're talking about, a low block center that could be able to take advantage. And for tonight, we have to look at the Lakers bigs to see what we're dealing with. It's either Len or we prioritize Jackson Hayes a little bit more. Rui Hachimura, it's a little bit of a letdown to me. Rui Hachimura has that toughness. He always had that toughness, even when he was with the Wizards. And now he's gone soft. I don't know if it's because of game plan. I don't know if it's because that's his role, just to hang out at the arc. But for a big guy and for the interior and the size that the Lakers need in the post, he stands in that outside a lot. And that's going to be problematic. That is. You're seeing, by the way, and we can shift up a little bit and go to the NBA champion odds. And these are all via DraftKings Sportsbook, because let's talk some futures while we have it. I, by the way, do a podcast for fantasyguru.com. You have to subscribe to be part of fantasyguru.com to catch the podcast every single week. I'd say the podcast ranges from between 32, 33 minutes to about 45. I try to get to everything, give you everything, and not have you waiting there for 5 hours. I could talk NBA for 5 hours, but that's like sitting through the movie Titanic, and I think everybody's had enough of that. That movie, actually, if I remember from the VHS days, the videotape days, that had, I think, 2 tapes to Titanic. I think that and The Godfather 2. Both of them had 2 tapes. I definitely had 2 DVDs. And if I had 2 DVDs for Godfather Part 2, then there were definitely 2 VHS tapes, maybe even 3 for that long movie. Awesome movie, Godfather 2. One of the best sequels that have ever come out. Just say that right there. Another good sequel, because I was watching a little bit of the All-Star festivities, and I saw Chris Tucker and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. For those that didn't hear any of the comments or see any of the videos, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was mic'd up, and he approached Chris Tucker. And when he approached Chris Tucker said to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander that he needs to be in Rush Hour 4. I would kill for a Rush Hour 4. I think the Rush Hour franchise is hilarious. I think Rush Hour 2 is awesome. I have a tough time deciding which one I like better between Rush Hour and Rush Hour 2. Just some great movies right there. But I like that interaction between Chris Tucker and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But while we look at futures right now, let's start with the NBA champion. Because all year long, I've been praying. I want this matchup badly. I want the Thunder versus the Celtics. I want the Celtics to defend their title against the Thunder. Kind of your vet team there versus your upstart that is now dominated. And last year they were good, fell in the playoffs. But again, they need that experience. And when I look at the playoff odds, by the way, you would think that the Cleveland Cavaliers, who have 10 losses on the year, over an 81% winning percentage, You would think that they would have a little bit more respect than they're being given here. Plus 700 for them. And I think a lot of people are hesitant with Cleveland. I think maybe with Cleveland, they think that some of their youngins need a little bit more experience. This team needs a little bit more time. But Kenny Atkinson is a great coach and a coach that's very, very likely going to win Coach of the Year. The Celtics are 5.5 games behind Cleveland. Last year, it seemed like the Celtics won the regular season and clinched that 1 seed back in January. This year, they're the 2. But yet you look and you see the Celtics at plus 235 on DraftKings, Cleveland plus 700. Cleveland just traded for DeAndre Hunter, and that's going to be huge for them. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a lot of depth. They've got a lot of good floor runners, and that's the big thing with Cleveland. Hustle guys, good for defense, good for a little bit of offense too on the side, good for a second unit, a.k.a. the Patty Mills effect. Guy like Patty Mills comes in, speeds up the offense a little bit, changes the tempo, and is able to still keep, let's just say, his old team, the Spurs in line to win when some of the starters needed a little bit of rest. Cleveland's got that kind of depth. Boston has that kind of depth. And it's hard for me to see a scenario where it's not those two teams in the conference finals. It's just tough. It's tough. Cleveland has great offense that they bring, but their defense is also stellar, and that's huge because they are letting up fewer than 112 points per game. And you normally see a big power offense still let up a lot of scoring on their end, but they have the complete package in Cleveland. I just don't know if this is their year. Next year, we could be talking. I think Cleveland right now can push Boston to the limit. But ultimately, I just think Boston is very mature. I think they've got great depth themselves. And if everybody stays healthy, which is always a question. And by the way, last year, that kind of destroyed Cleveland in the playoffs. They lost a few players during their playoff run, which ended in the second round. But at the same time, I think this year, this series in the conference finals, going to go to 7. It is. Boston minus 105 to repeat as Eastern Conference champions. Cleveland at plus 250. And then you have the Knicks. Here's my problem with endorsing the Knicks to win the East or even to win the title. My issue with the Knicks is that defensive intensity that Tom Thibodeau is known for, we haven't really seen it as effective even as last year. If you look at some of the stats up closely, and this is where we've been able to attack the Knicks in DFS, they let up a lot of guard scoring. And when you have some of the best wing defenders, it's a high bar. I understand that. But teams over the last month have started to realize that you could beat the Knicks from the perimeter a little bit. And Jalen Brunson, while he's a great hustle player and just a great player in general, Jalen Brunson has had some issues defending. Mikal Bridges, who they've traded a lot of picks for, he's had some issues defending as well. And Mikal Bridges is a very solid defender, but guards, or rather players in general, when switching on the Knicks guards, have been able to take advantage of them. And we've seen it against Boston. The Knicks just have a tough time against Boston. And while they're built like Boston, the Knicks have a problem. They need a little bit more size, in my opinion, to be able to compete against Boston. Towns is good. Towns is solid. But after Towns, it's Precious Achiuwa, and really that's it. Didn't do anything at the deadline. Who the hell knows with Mitchell Robinson? That guy is glass. He's almost as much fragile as Anthony Davis. But the Knicks have a problem, and if they lose some of their size or even one more from their depth, they're going to be in even bigger trouble. And if they draw Cleveland in the second round, which if things kind of go the way they go, and the season ended today, and the Knicks has the 3, they end up going up against Boston in the second round. It's not going to happen with Boston full strength. Boston wins the depth battle against the Knicks. And the Knicks haven't been able to perform well against Boston. So it's really hard for me to endorse the Knicks. I also find it interesting that there are teams like Milwaukee, let's just say, Orlando's been in a little bit of disarray this year because they've had a lot of injuries. They've lost a lot of players. They had Banchero out for a while. They had Franz Wagner out for a while. They lost some of their bigs like Mo Wagner. Jalen Suggs has been hurt. So they've been dealing with a lot of injuries, which has stunk for them. But this is a team that if they can stay healthy down the stretch, then we could take them seriously again. Because I think going into the season, people thought, including myself, they'd be a much bigger threat. But if you have injuries going on all season, you've seen it with the Philadelphia 76ers, who are 14 games under 500 at this point, it's going to impact the team. And then the team can't form a rhythm when you've got a player in, a player out, a player in, a player out. That's why I think the whole Joel Embiid not playing in back-to-backs is stupid. I know they want to preserve him, but here's the problem. The offense runs very differently when Joel Embiid is in for the Sixers. And when he's not in, it's very different. It can still be effective, but it's just not the same, and a team needs a flow, and you can't get that. That's why when your star player doesn't play every night, it's one thing if one of your pieces is very fragile and doesn't play every night. It's another when it's your star player, and I think that is the root of Philadelphia's problems. Not just that Jared McCain, who was looking like he could win Rookie of the Year before hurting his knee, it's not because Jared McCain is out why the Sixers are so bad. It's that the Sixers can't get any kind of consistency in their lineups. They always have someone out. Paul George also not the same, but that's a different story. Anybody else out in the West that could potentially defeat the Thunder? Going to be very hard. The Thunder have been running a very big lineup out there. Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein both starting. I was wondering when they signed Hartenstein to the $90 million that they did, how they were going to utilize him. I thought it was very impressive, and I thought, wow, they're paying this much for a player off the bench. No. They are paying this much to have a skyline lineup, which we've seen a few teams do a good job with. That's why I was kind of so surprised that Minnesota gave up on Karl Anthony Towns, because the Towns Gobert skyline lineup was excellent. And when Towns got hurt, I think it was after the All-Star break, maybe a little bit before, but he missed some time before the playoffs. The Wolves didn't look the same. But then Towns came back right before the playoffs began, had a few games to shake off the rust, maybe even one game, and then went into the series and they were able to beat Phoenix. And then they were able to win again. And then they lost to Dallas in the conference finals. So Minnesota had it, and then they gave up on it. Still very shocked that they really didn't want to pay Towns when all was said and done. But at the end of the day, when it comes to the Eastern Conference, Cleveland, Boston, New York, it's very hard for me to not think that anybody else can surprise people out there. I don't think it's going to be Detroit. Detroit, 3 games over 500. It's been very impressive. I don't think they do damage in the playoffs. Cade Cunningham to probably win most improved player. I never know what exactly goes into that criteria. To me, a stud like Cade Cunningham, I mean, he's improved a bit. The shooting is definitely matured for him. But to me, a most improved player is a guy who was doing virtually nothing that really hit the scene, or someone, a name that was okay that became really good. Not someone like a Cade Cunningham who was already a very solid option on a team where he needed to be the ball dominant guy. I don't know. That to me, I shrug my shoulders. That's why I don't really bet on most improved player. I don't. But we can look at the NBA MVP. And if anybody has any questions, by the way, feel free to put it in the chat. What is going on, Sean? How are you doing? And I hope you're ready for the second half of the season. It's great talking every Wednesday because this show is a free show. Every Wednesday, I'm going to be talking a lot of basketball. Ray Flowers handles a lot of baseball the other days, and I'll get into it as well as basketball starts to wind down. And then I'll start to do a little bit more football, maybe even bring in the other sports too. But right now on Wednesdays, we'll generally have those big slates. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a lot of basketball. Sean saying about Minnesota, They didn't want to pay the luxury tax on Towns, but is he Supermax worthy? I mean, look, that's a good question because we asked the same thing about Luka Doncic, and Dallas opted not to. And to answer your question, Sean, I really love Minnesota with the way they were built. But they love Naz Reid. That's the thing. They love Jaden McDaniels. They love some of their younger guys. So I see it from Minnesota's side. But after seeing how well it worked out and how this Timberwolves team was able to break through a little bit, because remember, guys, last year it came down to the final day of the season to determine your 1 seed in the Western Conference. It wasn't necessarily going to be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Minnesota was up there for most of the year. They were up there. Denver in that mix. You had a few teams in that mix. And so even though, they didn't want to pay the Supermax, it worked. It just worked. So that if it works, it's going to likely work again. And now let's say you pay it and then Towns gets hurt again. Now you have a more mature Naz Reid that steps right in. Look what's happening right now with them. Julius Randle is hurt. Been a rough couple of years for Julius Randle, but Minnesota hanging in there. Game behind the 6th seed right now. 7th seed going to the play-in tournament. But Naz Reid has been able to bridge it for them just a little bit. They've changed the way they've worked their front court offense too. Naturally, it's going to change with Julius Randle. So, Sean, I hear you there, and I'm very 50-50 as to whether or not Minnesota should have kept Towns. Maybe I'll ask to break the 50-50 here. The deciding vote joins me every single Wednesday, and that is none other than Armando Marsal here in his Heat jersey.
Yeah,
there we go. Armando, who do you have on that Heat jersey? Better not be Jimmy Butler.
No, it's LeBron James. LeBron James. In lieu of him playing tonight, why not? Why not? It is warmer inside my house than it usually is. So I couldn't wear a sweater. I usually sit in this corner. It's very cold, but not today. So yeah, man. Basketball. We have only one game, but we have basketball back, right? Really good day here. Looking forward to breaking tonight's game down with you, and then also look at some futures, man.
Yeah, man. And here's the deal. I mean, was just talking with Sean in the chat about this, and that's Minnesota. I was very surprised when the Timberwolves-Knicks trade happened shortly before the start of the season, sending Towns east and sending DiVincenzo and Randle into the cold in Minnesota. But if you were you and you were in charge of the Timberwolves, what would you do after seeing what the Wolves did with Towns and Gobert starting next to each other, as dominant as they are? We can ask the same with Luka. Dallas didn't want to pay the Supermax. Towns worthy of a Supermax with the Minnesota roster composition they had from last year, or would you have sent him packing?
I think you have to think of it like they're also looking at Edwards long term, right? Like that. I think that's a possibility there, what they're looking at. I do think Towns is worth that. I think he's a difference maker. I liked the Minnesota with him on the roster. I thought it made a lot of sense. You potentially have 2 superstars with Towns and Edwards. Like, it was a very nice roster. I think, maybe just a couple of pieces away. And I mean, I don't think that this trade made sense. I don't think that this move made sense, but it's one of those situations where you have to kind of play the long game with it, right? See what happens long-term with these kind of trades, because right now, short-term, like we're looking at it, we're like, not really working out as they hoped, I think. But we still got to do this long-term for them.
No, absolutely right here. Boom. Look at that. Experimenting on the fly there. So there's some odds. And with that, Armando and I are going to talk about the futures that we have here. What do you think of, so look at the championship in the Eastern Conference Finals odds. Do you think the Cleveland Cavaliers are getting a little disrespected because they have a very nice combined offense and defense that they bring, the most high-powered offense in the league, but at the end of the day, the wagerers out there still not buying them to beat Boston and represent the East in the finals? And even you look at the championship odds, people just don't see it. And Armando, maybe it's the experience factor for me that they need a little bit more juice before and more experience before being able to take that next step. And Boston has that kind of impactful depth. I'm still on the Boston side. Where are you?
100%. I just look at this and I look at Boston's roster. I look at this team, and it's a very strong team. Like, I'm not saying Cleveland is not. Cleveland is very talented as well. But obviously they're number one in the East right now. So like they're a very good team. But when you look at the roster that Boston has, the experience that they have, the coaching that they have, man, it's very hard to bet against them. It truly is. And when you look at, the champions, when you look at NBA champions at these odds, I think you see how close this is, with how close everyone thinks they are to OKC, which is one of the best teams in basketball as well. So look, I look at Boston, and now I'm not going to bet against them. I'm not even going to take the odds there with Cleveland. I know you're getting plus money. It looks favorable from a betting perspective. I actually prefer taking the Knicks at plus 425 if I'm going to make any move outside of Boston here. So, yeah, man, I just can't bet against Boston. They're just too good for me.
Yeah, and same here. And that's why I'm saying I can't endorse the Knicks necessarily, because watching the Knicks lately, they're just not the same defensive team. They're going to have to figure that out if they're going to be able to beat Boston or Cleveland for that matter. I think the Knicks can beat any team in this conference except for Boston, and Boston's proven that thus far this season. The Knicks barely even come close to beating them, but I don't want to hate on the Knicks completely because Boston is just a tough team to defeat. But I look at another team that has just been hurt all year. Do you think the Orlando Magic, if any other team in the Eastern Conference, there are two teams that I look at that could they shake the standings a little bit over the finals home stretch before the playoffs? The two teams I look at, Orlando, whether or not they can finally all stay healthy and then be the solid defensive team with the improved offense that we were expecting. And then the Milwaukee Bucks too, who look, at the end of the day, Chris Middleton wasn't doing jack for them. They get Kyle Kuzma, that adds a little bit more of a threat, but to me, still doesn't overly excite me in thinking that they're going to make a run to the finals. But what do you think about Milwaukee and Orlando's prospects for the rest of the way?
So I like Orlando's prospects, but I think you're going to talk about the same issue with when you look at Cleveland, right? The inexperience there with Orlando. I think that's going to be a negative for them in the postseason, especially when they're playing in very difficult environments and in very close competitive games against a team that has been here and done this before. So I'm concerned about that. Milwaukee, I'm never going to count them out. Giannis, when you have someone like Giannis and you have someone like Damian Lillard, you never count that duo out. I don't think they have enough to overcome Boston. I just truly don't. When you look at the roster, I think Boston is just that deep. In addition to having a strong starting five, they're also a deep team with a lot of players that can come off the bench and have big performances. I don't view Milwaukee as deep, and I know rotations get smaller in the postseason, but having that depth for Boston is a luxury because you can rest players, you can give player more minutes, and in the long game, that's going to win you championships. We've seen that already before. So for me, I just don't know if Milwaukee has enough. I'm never going to count them out. I'm never going to count them out because that duel is, one of the best duels that there is in the NBA right now. But again, I just don't know if they have enough to overcome Boston. And I do agree with you. Kuzma is an upgrade, I think, from Middleton, right? Given how they were playing, this season or whatnot. But I just don't know if it's a big enough upgrade. If he starts performing at his ceiling, maybe we'll be having a different conversation a couple of months from now.
You got yourself a Heat jersey on. By the way, you just made me wish I was wearing the jersey here. But for the next few weeks, like I told everyone, want to pimp the store that we have here, our new swag store, which, by the way, everything 25% off now. Here, let me give you the link to our swag store, fantasyguru.com, because I love it. I've got, as you saw last week, Armando, I've got 3 shirts. I got my hat here. This one, and I kind of don a different shirt every single week. This is kind of your OG logo from back in 1995. What were you doing in 1995, Armando?
I was playing sports outside with my friends, football, flag football, all of that stuff.
You were watching the Heat actually trade for Alonzo Mourning after getting Tim Hardaway. Dude, those 90s Heat teams, man, they were fun. Underachieved because my Knicks used to knock them out of the playoffs for the most part. But those 90s teams right there, man, with Vashawn Leonard. Vashawn Leonard was one of my favorite shooters. I was a huge Vashawn Leonard guy. So with that, Armando, let's talk a little bit more about some of the rookies of the year here. Very quickly, want to get your shot on Kel'el Ware.
Yes, so rookie of the year. So Castle has played phenomenal, right? He's getting good minutes. He's carved out a very significant role. Ware is a difference maker. I really do think Ware is a difference maker. I actually like the idea of taking that plus 230 because he's playing really good basketball. And you see what the presence he's given, that he's allowed Bam and the body to move to the 4, which I think is really his natural position. Just been dominant under the boards, someone that has had some massive games, and I think his role is going to continue to grow throughout the season, right? I think if the Heat are going to, and again, listen, I'm not saying they're going to make any kind of run, but if the Heat are going to be a force to be reckoned with down the stretch, I do think he's going to have a big part of that. So it's something to keep an eye on. I like the idea of taking it now because all we've seen from him is him ascending, right? And he's playing better and better and better. So I like the idea of taking it now because you might see that number decrease, in the upcoming weeks if he continues to play well.
Armando Marsal has to bounce a little bit early today.
Sorry, guys.
Armando, again, thank you so much for hopping on. We'll talk again soon.
Yep. Take care.
Armando Marsal from fantasyguru.com. Bouncing a little bit early, but that's okay here. So I'm going to go back and talk with you about some of these other rookies before I get to tonight's game. I'll preview it from a showdown standpoint here. If you all have any questions, by the way, then yes, Sean, the NBA, CBA, yes, the second apron and all of that. I mean, I know it adds another element to it, but yes, the CBA is going to be a problem with these Supermax contracts. And who knows, we might see more trades, especially at the deadline for a guy like Luka Doncic. I'm still just in shock by that whole thing. But before I talk a little bit more about the rookies, I mean, the Lakers are kind of in that mix, plus 1,800 to win the title. Don't make that bet. If the Lakers end up winning this year, I will be majorly impressed. The Lakers need to build more. That's the problem. And I know it's very easy to look at a team that has LeBron James and Luka Doncic and your mouth starts to water and you want to be able to take that bet thinking that's a championship team. The problem with this Lakers team is that they don't have that front court depth and they're going to absolutely need it in the way. How are they going to be able to stop Jokic? I mean, could anybody? But that's a good example. They don't have that skilled size that they can turn it. They can't throw it in the post. It's going to have to be a lot of LeBron James. And that, by the way, can cause a little bit of wear and tear. And that could end up, I don't want to say getting him hurt, but, could end up him banged up. I mean, the guy's 40. I mean, come on. He can't be muscling down low the entire time. So that takes away some front court offense that the Lakers desperately needed. Now, if we're talking about next year, because, look, it's the Lakers. They're going to find a way. After this trade failed, they are going to find a way to land someone big. I don't know who it's going to be, but I bet you if the Lakers had a chance to trade for someone, they'd take on even someone like a Nikola Vucevic, who doesn't bring anything defensively, but could give you some offense from down low. They don't really have that skill now. Hachimura, wing shooter. Jackson Hayes, he's okay. He's fine. I mean, if the lane's clear, then he could get to the basket. Not good at putting himself in position for rebounds, though. To me, needs a little bit more muscle. Alex Len has that muscle, but really just a low block player, and that's it. But again, your volume producer. So that's why I don't think the Lakers can win that championship. The Denver Nuggets, I mean, I don't want to doubt them. I question their depth, though. That's my one thing. We'll have to see what happens with Westbrook when he comes back into the mix. I think that they become more of a threat once he does. But beyond Westbrook and Christian Brown, who will likely be reassuming his role off the bench, to me, it's hard for me to trust that Denver depth. Just is. Beyond their starters and beyond their sixth man. But I like Denver. I do. And the thing with Denver is that Nikola Jokic, while it's looking like via the odds that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who absolutely guys averaging over 32 points and making a major impact. And even though he's averaging over that much, he doesn't have to be the man every single night. Very good at setting up his other teammates. That's another reason why the Thunder are so dangerous, because of everything that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander does. Very likely to win the MVP, but Nikola Jokic is still very, very solid. And I'll say this. If there's anybody that can upend it from the rest of the year, it is him. I don't think it's going to be Giannis. I think Jason Tatum, we haven't seen Jason Tatum from the stat department really explode, but he's still an impact player. The problem with the MVP, and this is what you have to remember when you're betting on it, the problem with the MVP is that it's not about team impact as much as it is about stats. It's very stat based now. When I feel like the MVP, yeah, you had to have good stats, but you also the impact on your team. And then when all of a sudden you started seeing Russell Westbrook and even James Harden win the MVP, it was all stat based. You remember it with Westbrook when he was on the Thunder when they were kind of down in the dumps, but he was stat packing. Players on his team were letting him. He would yell at his teammates to let him grab rebounds so he can log that triple-double. That's what the MVP is. It's very stat-based right now, and it's not necessary impact because if it was, Jason Tatum would be winning these MVPs too, and he hasn't been. So that's why I think the world of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown for that matter, but Jason Tatum is just awesome, an awesome player to have. Very aggressive for his size. Excellent there. And yes, you're right, Sean. Boston is too deep, but if you take Jason Tatum off that team isn't going to the NBA Finals. Jaylen Brown leading them isn't going to the NBA Finals. I think Jason Tatum's a little bit of a half step above Jaylen Brown there, maybe even a full step. I just think that when you watch the Celtics, and you don't always see it on the stat size, and Sean, I know you're someone that watches a lot of NBA, so you see it too, is that when I'm watching Boston, it's not about what Jason Tatum does on the ball. It's the movement. He's not just waiting there in the corner asking for the rock and then creating all the time. Sometimes he has to do that. And against a slower big, why wouldn't he do that? It's kind of like when I see why isn't Detroit forcing the ball when we're betting on Jalen Duren and the Hornets have been giving up everything but the kitchen sink inside. Why aren't they feeding him more? Why aren't they having him hit the post more? It doesn't make any sense. Hornets really didn't have too much representation there. They had Nurkic the second game. But at the same time, when that is a big-time vulnerability of a team, you have to exploit that, and Detroit wasn't doing that. Detroit wasn't doing it at all. And that first game, and I didn't understand why. And this was right before the All-Star break because I was very bitter after that because I said, what the hell is going on? Why isn't Jalen Duren doing anything? And then he nearly caught up and hit the prop in the second half alone after doing nothing in the first half of that game. They started realizing that maybe dump some passes inside to him because as big as Mark Williams is, he ain't doing anything about it. Which is why tonight I'm going to be looking at those Lakers bigs. Don't necessarily want to on most slates, but tonight it's a juicy matchup for the Lakers bigs. And I'd say for LeBron James as well, because he's going to be the one driving inside a lot. Luka's going to handle the arc a little bit more. Austin Reeves, that's where I don't know where to go for Austin Reeves because we're still seeing Austin Reeves produce, but now it's going to be a three-headed monster and then just everybody else. So I don't know if Austin Reeves is going to fall by the wayside, especially with Luka. And this is good to note. According to the Lakers coaches, he is not going to be on any kind of minutes restriction moving forward. So you got to think that Austin Reeves is losing some time of possession because of that. And let's venture over. And, again, I keep saying rookie of the year, little all over the place today. For me, rookie of the year, impressive rookies. I think these odds speak volume because guys like Wells and Edey are a reason, not the reason, but the Memphis Grizzlies who have dealt with their own injuries this year, especially out of the backcourt, they've been hanging strong. They've been hanging strong in the Western Conference. They play very solid defense. They do well. And Zach Edey helps them out on offense too. And they don't play Zach Edey a lot. It's kind of frustrating. I wonder if that changes next year. It kind of reminds me of how the Clippers were utilizing Ivica Zubac before this year. Now they've unleashed him and he's been very, very solid. Now he's playing 30-plus minutes. Last year they weren't doing that. I wonder if next year, and I've got Zach Edey in a dynasty league, by the way, I wonder if next year Zach Edey is a little bit more involved in the rotation. It's hard because they've got a lot of forwards to like and rotate through, guys like Aldama. They had LaRavia. They got rid of him. But they have Aldama. They've got Jaren Jackson. They've got him. I mean, they've got a lot of guys that they can rotate in that position. So that's why the Grizzlies have been able to stay as contenders. I don't think they ultimately beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. Memphis runs a very fast-paced offense. They've been fun to watch. I like them a lot. But here's the thing with Castle. I don't know if Fox being there is going to take away from Castle's stats too much, and that's going to be a factor. That's why, if you're looking at the Rookie of the Year right now, I think we look at more Ware and Reza Shea. Why? Because for Ware, no more Jimmy Butler, and what they've been doing, the Miami Heat, they've been starting both Bam Adebayo, who's been playing the 4 and has been pretty good at it, and then Ware has been on the low block, and he's been doing a good job. In fact, even leading into the All-Star break, a lot better with the rebounding. Very improved. He's a good shot blocker. He's blocked shots in each of his last 4 games. The scoring is a little bit up and down, but more experience and more minutes. We're going to start to see this guy play 30-plus minutes, so I'd say put some cheap bets down on Ware. I think Ware does a little bit more than Reza Shea. Reza Shea is really just going to be a scorer, but with Jalen Johnson out and DeAndre Hunter traded, the world is his oyster in Atlanta. And the fact that he's the number 1 pick, so if he starts averaging, let's just say, I don't know, he bumps his average up over the next months to that 20-point mark or whatnot, then maybe it ends up being him. But I think that with Miami and both of these teams, I think where they end up could play a factor too. Reza Shea right now is averaging just over 11 points per game. He doesn't really do much else. He's just a scorer. I think Kel'el Ware is a more complete player, as we've seen, and has really held his own in the post. And it's not just from what I see on the stat sheet. I've been very impressed, and I think a few of us were waiting to see how the Heat was going to implement this guy. And now what they've done is they're starting Adebayo and Ware, and then Jovic is coming off the bench. I think that is a nice style that they have when it comes to those 3 in their front court. That's a very solid front court right there. And I think it's going to do damage, and Miami's very well coached. So if I'm putting the bet out there right now, still waiting. I need to see a few more games, what the impact is with Fox being in San Antonio on Castle stats. I'm going to put my money on Ware at plus 230 for Rookie of the Year. He's looking good, and I think he'll continue to look good the rest of the way. And they're going to need his offense too. They're going to need some help. They're absolutely going to need some help because beyond those 3, not too much depth up front. But I like what I see with them. Let's talk a little bit about tonight's game before I head out today. Tonight's game, Showdown Slate, where am I looking? Well, one of the pieces of news that we got in the All-Star break, and this is something to watch, but LaMelo Ball is going to play tonight. But Elfrid Payton, someone that I think can produce in volume. You put him on the court if he's out there. Remember, it is a monster spread tonight, and I'm thinking LeBron James is going to play. So if I'm thinking LeBron James is going to play and the Lakers are going to be up big, then Elfrid Payton is going to get some minutes because the Hornets are going to start preserving. They're not going anywhere. The Hornets are going to start preserving LaMelo Ball. We've seen it before. The guy can't stay on the court. Elfrid Payton was just signed to a second 10-day contract. So I think Elfrid Payton is going to be your certified backup guard. And I think he's going to get, well, maybe he won't get 30 minutes. I think that he does get 20 to 25. I think we can pretty much lock him in for that. He is not a scoring guard. He's more of a defender. You have to remember that. So a lot of that production, and he's so cheap when it comes to putting him into Showdown, he's so cheap, but we need those boards and dimes. And that's something that we could potentially get against the Lakers guards with Elfrid Payton. So that's a value pump play that I'm fine with for tonight for Showdown. Alex Len, another one. Alex Len is a good value play because if I'm having a tough time trusting which of the Lakers 3 to trust, I mean, look, I can at least look cheap here to see if I can get away from 2 low-valued options. I think Alex Len, and remember, we got to find a way to attack Mark Williams. Mark Williams might not get his full complement of minutes that we're used to. But I still think even if Yusuf Nurkic is in there, he's not the same defender as we've seen. Alex Len is somebody that when it comes to what we can look at, he's pretty much outside of Jackson Hayes, all LA has at this point. We saw him play 20 minutes against Utah 22, and he grabbed 7 boards. He didn't score much, and that's not going to be his thing. But if he's grabbing rebounds and helping with the passing a little bit, as we've seen in the past from him, then he's going to come through. So those are your two low-value options. I'm starting small, working my way back up. Dalton Knecht is not getting a lot of minutes. Again, with the potential blowout, I think he does have a chance. And who wouldn't want, especially because this was the team he was supposed to be playing on, kind of awkward. He's really mainly a scorer, and that's it. And it's hard to tell how many minutes he will get. So with Luka at this point, unrestricted when it comes to his minutes, I'm starting to look at trusting him tonight. But if LA is going to be up big, they're going to look to pull him as well. This is where Austin Reeves, for tonight's sake, Austin Reeves can benefit a little bit more. Because if the Lakers are going to preserve both LeBron and Luka, Austin Reeves is going to be running this offense. And he's still been logging a lot of assists and doing decently on the glass. The shots are going to go down. His days of getting 18 to 20 shots are over for now. But in a blowout situation, which this has that chance, Charlotte has been able to hang in. That's the one thing I will tell you. Austin Reeves does have a little bit of intrigue. If you're looking to build a little bit more of a GPP style, well, Austin Reeves is that. If you're looking to play it safe, Austin Reeves is not that. And if Charlotte keeps it a game, which we've seen a couple of times this year, where even Charlotte's second unit able to bring them back to within 15 points, the starters are going to come back out again. And that's where we can see it in this matchup tonight. Very awkward because of the trade being rescinded. So if I'm going to spend up for one player in this game, I really want it to be LaMelo Ball. But because the Lakers' front court is so bare, I mean, someone like a Miles Bridges is very, very attractive. But Mark Williams, to me, of the high-priced guys, even if he plays just 20 to 25 minutes, I think he's going to dominate the Lakers' post and vice versa. We got to look at the front courts there. And if I'm looking to pay up for someone, I'd rather pay up for, let's just say, a LaMelo Ball than try to figure out which Laker it's going to be. I'd rather pay for LaMelo at that point and be a little bit different. Because then I'm thinking, who's going to be producing in volume? LaMelo Ball, there, when it came to the injury, not so good. Didn't last too long last time he faced them. So that's what's going on in Charlotte, LA. When building tonight, the players that I'm going to be looking at, I'm going to be looking at a lot of mid-range players. Like I said, I'm going to be looking at guys like Elfrid Payton, Alex Len for value. If I can try to get both Ball and Doncic in the lineup together, I will. Miles Bridges is definitely very intriguing. He's been taking on a much bigger scoring role. And I think in this matchup, him getting the 18 to 20 shots is still a possibility. Even if the Lakers are blowing out the Hornets, I still think that Miles Bridges will still get that playing time. Last time he played against the Lakers, he actually put up 26 and 8. And he's taken on more of a role. He's been aggressive, but sometimes it takes him a bit just to get going. Sean asking me if the Lakers have a viable big after trading AD. Viable, no, but for this conversation's sake, it's going to be a little bit of a combined effort. And I think Alex Len, they got for a reason, is going to ultimately be that guy. Jackson Hayes, when it comes to their minutes, I think it will be distributed evenly between Hayes and Len when all's said and done. Right now, at this point, I give the priority to Jackson Hayes, but I need to see a little bit more out of him because the rebounding just hasn't been there for him. He's not staying inside, and it's very frustrating to me, which is why I put my eggs for tonight more in the Alex Len basket, because I think that Alex Len against whoever the Lakers throw out in the second unit, I think, or rather whoever the Hornets throw out in the second unit, likely Nurkic, I think he has a clear path to probably 22 to 25 minutes tonight in this game. And we've seen Charlotte, he could be going up against someone like a Mark Williams. And Mark Williams has not been a good defender. And I have this weird feeling that he's not going to be playing 30 minutes tonight. If really they're monitoring his conditioning, he's going to be playing about 20 to 23 minutes tonight. He could still volume produce, and the Lakers don't have a lot up front. And I'm sure Mark Williams is pretty pissed off about everything that's gone on, and the situation is awkward as hell. So Mark Williams is going to want to get him some at this point. So, Sean, there's your answer when it comes to the Lakers. Their best laid plans happen. because the trade got rescinded. I don't know if they look to sign someone else or if somebody else gets bought out, but their front court is literally at this point Jackson Hayes, for center at least, Jackson Hayes and Alex Len. I've gotten a few questions as well about Jared Vanderbilt. Jared Vanderbilt's going to take a while to ramp up because he missed so much time. So they're going to keep him at, in my opinion, the 20-minute mark max here. But that's someone that tonight, if he could grab the rebounds, he can end up coming through, but he's not much of a scorer. We haven't seen him with the time he's been given since he's come back from injury. We haven't seen him get a lot of offensive opportunity. He's all rebounds, and that's it, which is why, again, I trust someone like an Alex Len a little bit more. By the way, for those that want to get involved in NBA here at fantasyguru.com, you know where you can find us, and you can sign up right now for that MVP plan. The MVP plan includes all of our sports except for MLB and NFL. When you sign up for the MVP plan, you get for the rest of the season, playoffs, NBA. I'm putting bets in there 6-7 days a week, maybe even tonight as well. Although tonight's game is pretty dangerous, high spread. So I'll be looking at maybe a low prop and that's it, but I'm not going to go crazy. I'm going to wait for tomorrow, which, by the way, tomorrow, if you're up in the morning, 9 a.m. Eastern, I'll be on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio, breaking down the Thursday NBA slate on DFS Dunks and Dimes. A little bit of a one-off show for yours truly, 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern. I'll break down the entire slate on the radio, Sirius XM Channel 87, which, by the way, where you can hear Jeff Mann's 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Elite Sports. So make sure you check in with Jeff Mann's all week long. Catch it anytime you want on the Sirius XM app. But 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, Pappy Mann's on doing the deal and also talking all sports and putting in his alt line parlays as well. Jeff has a very good strategy on how to get these parlays cooked up right here. Not easy to do, but Jeff does a great job. It's been in the betting sphere, me, Jeff, and Armando Marsal lately, and we went into the All-Star break with very high vibes, hopefully to keep it running coming out of the All-Star break there. You can find me on X and Instagram at Fensty Sports 2, by the way, if you didn't know. And you can also sign up for all of our other products here, fantasyguru.com/join-today/. If, by the way, you missed the swag store that we have up, here's the link once again. We've got our swag store up, my swag shirt for the day that I'm wearing. Here's another one that I'll probably wear on next week's show. Let's get rid of the graphic here for this. Boom. You get a little Elite Mafia. I also have the Guru black and white shirt, which makes you think, hey, when you're Fantasy Guru, because this looks like the NWO for all you wrestling fans out there, when you're Fantasy Guru for life. That's how it works right here. And that's why you got to sign up to join the Elite Mafia. That is what we do. Ray Flowers will be back on tomorrow to talk some more baseball, getting you ready for the fantasy baseball season. Ray has a tremendous guide, a draft book coming out. Ray talked about it on yesterday's show. And we'll have to see the saga regarding Vladimir Guerrero Jr. as well. We're not signing long-term in Toronto. Where's he going to go? Going to talk about that throughout the rest of the week on this stream. You can catch it anytime. We posted on the site in the Elite Plus section last week on my Fensty's Basketball Diaries podcast. I covered the Eastern Conference. And you could go and check it out right now if you go to fantasyguru.com. You click that Elite Plus tab. You scroll down a little bit. You'll see the logo for Fensty's Basketball Diaries. You click on that, and you'll see all of the chapters/episodes of the podcast. And with that, I went through the Eastern Conference, and I talked about what's been working for us, what players we've been betting on, what players we've been investing in for DFS, what players we've been staying away, in a state of the team. This week, I'm going to do the Western Conference, and I'll have that out for you tomorrow just to talk about the state of the conference like I did with the East. And when it came to the Western Conference, I'll talk about in that podcast where we're going to strategize when it comes to betting and also give you a few more futures right there. And I want to thank everybody for joining today's live stream here. It's Fantasy Sports Daily. Make sure you catch us every single day, noon Eastern. I talk basketball every single Wednesday. And don't forget, although it's not tonight, but most Wednesdays when we have a full slate of games, watch along Wednesday. I just sit in the DFS NBA Discord. Not tonight, though, because we have the 10 p.m. Eastern solo game, and that's it. So everybody hang with your families. But next week, we are back together because watch along Wednesday. I sit in the DFS and NBA betting Discord rooms at fantasyguru.com, and I just react to what I'm seeing in these games in real time, because that is how we learn basketball. How we learn basketball is by watching these players play so we can know how involved they are in the offense. A lot of people just box score surf. They don't understand. This is how we get better. This is how we win. Why is betting turned around? Because I'm watching for different things, and I'm seeing different things on the court, and I look for different things, and I write down what I see, and I look back through my notes. Jeff Mance does the same thing. He has his past notebooks as well from years and years, so he could see the strategy, and he can also see what we were talking about before and how we can implement lessons before and upgrade them. And also, when you're down and when things aren't going well, then you take a step back. What's wrong with the process? Sometimes nothing's wrong. Sometimes you're just on a bad betting run. And then you fix it a little bit, and then the process continues, and then we grow from there. So with that, I'll say one more thing, because something I meant to say at the start of the show, and I said it last week, and I wrote it in our Discord, and still a few of you did, but I can't control what you want to bet on. You don't bet NBA All-Star Weekend. Never, ever, 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 ever. You need something to invest in. You need to scratch that itch, place a bet for the night. Look at all the other sports we offer, and that's why we offer the MVP plan. Because on nights like All-Star Saturday night and the All-Star Round Robin tournament that they had for me, or whatever it was, the 4-team tournament, it's hard to do research on that. There's no way for me to research it. It's a guessing game. Nobody takes it seriously. There's no incentive whatsoever. Mac McClung has one more dunk contest than he's had dunks in the NBA. Most people don't know who Mac McClung is. Most casual NBA fans. That's the problem with All-Star Saturday night. Victor Wembanyama and Chris Paul being cheap with the skills competition by just throwing the balls whatever direction they can so they can get to the next obstacle. First of all, why the NBA has it, and I know that everything is timed. They have so much freaking downtime in that All-Star Saturday night. I saw the division. It was like 2 hours and 35 minutes of action for All-Star Saturday night, and then or maybe for the entire weekend, and then 2 hours and 28 minutes of commercials or non-sports time, downtime, okay? I don't need to hear Jello Ball for the 1,000th time singing Tweaker. It's okay. It's great. Everyone loves it. Good for Jello. Great for Jello. But at the same time, All-Star Saturday night is something to be watched, enjoyed. But you had the Spurs skills team cheat. And when you had the Spurs skills team cheat, that's another reason why you can't bet the All-Star game or All-Star weekend for that matter. Stop. Don't do it. Don't ask me I don't know who's going to win the dunk contest. Mac McClung jumped over a car. That's great. I don't know what he's trying to perform before that. The three-point shootout. They're standing threes. It's very hard to really go and see, okay, well, who's shooting well lately? These are your top shooters right here. So it's taking a guess, not even an educated guess. You're playing roulette. There's no educated guess. So don't bet All-Star Weekend. You saw it. And the NBA, the skills competition, don't have it so you just have to take 3 shots or make 3 passes, and then if you miss, you just move on to the next obstacle. No, make them make it. They'll make it eventually. These are the best players in the world. It might take them a few more times. Let the time be what it is, and you can always catch up on time. You can. There's so much downtime here. Kevin Hart was doing nothing. Kevin Hart wastes time when he's at these events. He's laughing at himself the whole time, thinking he's the funniest guy. Oh, Shaq, you look like a pimp. Ha, 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 ha. Don't bet All-Star Weekend. It's stupid. It's stupid. Because then I give you something right and you go, oh, Fensty missed the bet. No. Fensty said, don't bet All-Star Weekend. Ever. And if you did this year and you won something, congrats. You got freaking lucky. Bet anything else, but don't bet All-Star Weekend. Okay, and with that, I hope everybody has a great day. I just need to get that off my chest because people still bet it, and it's stupid. The books love it. They take your money. These guys betting All-Star Weekend. Don't be that person. Elite Mafia, we don't bet All-Star Weekend. Ray Flowers back, same time, same place, right here, Fantasy Sports Daily. Follow me at Fensty Sports. Great being with all of you. Sean, shout out to you. Great talking with you. And get ready to win because we're getting ready for Showdown tonight. I'll try to cook up a bet for tonight, but if not, tomorrow night, we're back in action. Catch me, SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, tomorrow, Thursday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern, talking all things NBA. Today, Jeff Mans, and all week long, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, Elite Sports. Jeff Mans will be with you, helping you win as well. There is no sleep for the winners. Have a great day. Be safe. For those dealing with the bad weather, good luck with that too. Had trouble coming back from Florida. It was a nightmare, but always love being back with you. Same time, same place tomorrow for Fantasy Sports Daily on the Elite Plus Network, powered by FantasyGuru.com.